If I'm Ruben, then you Clay Aiken, but second place gets nothing. So get up at this godforsaken booth. The truth is you sadly mistaken. Proof I'm better than layman. Shoot, I'm super.
So Ring of Honor had a pay-per-view event, Death Before Dishonor, on September the 12th, 2021, and now we have to do a review of it. So let's talk about it. Started the show on hour 1 with a memoriam for Daphne, which was the 10-bell salute. This was very respectful. I like this. So the only match on the pre-show was the 16-man rather, Ring of Honor Rumble, which was won by Alex Zane, who wrestled in NXT as Ari Sterling. This was pretty cool. You know, he did a spot in this match that I didn't particularly like. It was a double hurricane run off the top rope where he just basically just had one leg. Like I've seen some pretty insane things in my life. I've never seen two people get hurricane by one guy's leg. You know, like it's unrealistic. But I finally got to see a little bit of him. He seems to be a typical indie guy when it comes to just doing flips and stuff and then botching a lot of his flips. So he reminds me a lot of Jack Evans in a way where, you know, he screws up, you know, as much as he does good stuff. Some interesting things that took place here was Flip Gordon. Flip Gordon came back as Flip Gordon from 4 years ago. Apparently he has retrograde amnesia. I saw this online, but I didn't believe it was real. I thought it was somebody talking ish about Flip because people don't like Flip Gordon anymore. I think primarily to whatever political opinions he may have. So that's what I thought they were doing, was making fun of him. I saw the episodes. I watched the TV show, but I didn't commit them to memory. So I did know that Flip Gordon did have a head injury. But I didn't know they were really doing he had retrograde amnesia, and now he thinks it's 2018. So he literally came out to his old theme song. He was clean shaven, had his hair cut. He was babyface Flip Gordon. And he worked his old style again where he did nothing but flips. Even though it wasn't as flippy as it used to be. So that was all very interesting. So in winning the last four was Brian Johnson, Alex Zane, PJ Black, and Flip Gordon. And the final two were PJ Black and Alex Zane. Alex Zane ended up winning as Black. PJ Black went for a flying crossbody. And all Alex Zane did was hold to the top rope. So Alex Zane will be getting a title match on a upcoming episode of Ring of Honor TV. This is very interesting. They spent the entire match basically talking about Alex Zane's history in Ring of Honor. Well, basically, he doesn't have a lot of experience. I think he had like 2 or 3 matches in Ring of Honor. But one of the matches, he actually defeated Bandito. So it makes sense that he would get a title shot here. And it's not just him jumping the line, you know. So, all right. Maria cut a promo on the pre-show too, but we can skip that. I don't want to say negative things about Maria. At least not right now. I'll save those. Okay, I'll save it for later. So that's about it. The first match, Dalton Castle versus Eli Isom. It's a solid match. Not much to say. Eli Isom with the counter for the Bangarang wells into a victory roll. It was pretty good. Dalton Castle ended up winning the match with the Bangarang. Eli Isom, no matter what they do with him, he just seems to have zero killer instinct, zero intensity. He just seems like a very, very, very nice guy who keeps his shoes perfectly aligned in his room. You know, keeps his socks in pairs all the time. He doesn't ever lose a sock. Never a hair out of place. Always the nicest guy around. Waves at you from across the street. Hey, Jim. How the kids, Jim? You know, I don't know, man. Maybe, like, I don't know, man. Like, somebody probably needs to, like, you know, flatten all 4 of the tires on his car or something like that. See if he can have anger. Because, you know, the match was basically Dalton Castle and they call them the baby chickens, you know. But that's basically the chicks. And they're, you know, being very annoying and getting in the way and all that kind of stuff. And I still didn't really see much intensity coming out of Eli Isom, even with that. It's just like he just doesn't have it. Maybe he might have to be like a Ricky Steamboat, eternal babyface, which is fine. But even Ricky Steamboat, when, you know, he had fire, he had intensity. Like, nobody ever wanted to boo him. Like, he didn't have, make you, he wants to really, really hurt you kind of energy, but he would really defend himself kind of energy. Eli Isom doesn't really have that. He just has prep school kid energy, and it's weird, man. He'd stop it. All right, second match on the card. Jake Atlas versus Taylor Rust. Taylor Rust was in Ring of Honor right before he went to NXT. And of course, Jake Atlas is also from NXT. Riccaboni took a moment to give Jake Atlas credit for being, quote, brave enough to be an out gay man. As if this is like 1970 something. In any event, I did like that they gave these guys credit for their wins in NXT and talked about what their records were in NXT and all that kind of stuff. And it was really interesting. Ring of Honor is a place where they don't neglect what you did before, much like AEW, of course, doesn't. WWE is the only place really in the world that, you are a whole new entity when you step in. It's literally like, like stepping into like going into the land of Oz. You're a completely new creature. But I felt that was pretty interesting. At one point in this match, Jake Atlas got knocked out. It was clear he was knocked out, and he had got pinned. He didn't really kick out, but the referee stopped because the referee knew it wasn't the finish. So the referee stopped, and Jake Atlas was sluggish getting up, and he wasn't getting up really. It was not looking good. And then Taylor Rust put him in the Goya lock, and Jake Atlas wasn't even responsive, and the referee just stopped the match. So hopefully Jake Atlas is okay. Hopefully it's not too bad. This was kind of a mess. It was kind of a mess. Also, Jake Atlas now has blue tips in his hair. I don't know, man. That's weird. That blue tip stuff is weird. So the next match was a 6-man tag. Tony Deppen, Homicide, and Chris Dickinson, otherwise known as Violence Unlimited, versus LSG, Lee Moriarty, and John Walters. Dickinson pinned Moriarty with the Death Valley Driver. The match was fine. It was just a real fast-paced match. It's supposed to be Violence Unlimited against the Pure Wrestlers, as they're doing faction stuff. So it's basically Violence Unlimited proving that their style is better than the actual style of Pure Wrestling. But this is better. This is better off as a TV match, if we're being honest. After the match, Walters was disappointed in his teammates, specifically Lee Moriarty, because he's the one who got pinned. LSG was trying to get in between them. Jay Lethal came out there and cut this impassioned proselytizing promo about the love of pro wrestling and what the Pure Division means and what it stands for. And they didn't hide that Lee Moriarty was going to AEW. And as Jay Lethal was shaking everybody's hand about the future of the future and the past of the Pure Division, he talked about how Lee Walters in it and have LSG in it, and he wished that Lee Moriarty was staying around so that they could say that he was in it. And then he gave credit to a lot of the old Pure wrestlers, the Eddie Guerreros and the Dean Malenkos, and the guys that they grew up watching, and the style that they grew up loving being professional wrestling. And they said that he talked about how he gets aggravated when he sees people talk about how it's new and it's fresh. He says, that's not new. It is the style of wrestling we grew up with. It is what we always wanted to do. And he talked about studying Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, and they're trying to reshape the wrestling business in their image. And now it's time for Pure Wrestling to thrive. And, it's going to thrive right here in Ring of Honor. And, it was really cool. And the entire, Pure Division was standing on the stage listening to Jay Lethal rant like a maniac about how much he loves pro wrestling, how much everybody else loves pro wrestling, how much he's a tape trader and all this kind of stuff. It was very good. Ever since Jay Lethal found this passion for pro wrestling and turned it into almost like a sermon every week, or at least every other week, because he doesn't talk every week, it's been pretty good, and him being nice and also being kind of crazy was also pretty cool. The fourth match on the card, the OGK versus the Briscoes. This match was pretty solid too. The OGK win it when Taven counters the Jay Driller into a small package. That was a pretty solid match. Not much to complain about. You know, pretty solid from top to bottom. Very enjoyable. No problems there. The next match, though, was a cluster. It was Josh Woods versus Jonathan Gresham. This match was a cluster because these guys, they were trying to show how equal these guys were. So they kept getting tied up in the ropes and stuff like that. And the referee would take a rope break from both of them. So, you know, you only get 3 rope breaks in a pure rules match. And 3 different times they got tied up in the ropes. And the referee just took a rope break from both of them. So they ended up burning all of their rope breaks. There was a double pin at 11 minutes or 45 seconds or something like that in. There was a double pin. And because of the double pin, Jonathan Gresham was about to be awarded the pure title back on a draw. He said that, no, you know, I don't want that. It's going to tarnish my legacy. So he got the title back and then promptly lost it like about 5 minutes later. So, you know, I guess he would rather lose it than let it end in a draw. But I like the story that told. I didn't like this match. I think they had better matches than this. I did not like this match. But because of the whole weirdness with the ropes and, you know, it was just weird. But I like the story that they told with Jonathan Gresham, who could have taken the belt on a draw and left. But he decided to stand and fight and defend his title, and it cost him the match, and that's why he ended up losing. But I still don't think this was the better match. You know, it could have had better matches than this. The finish was very strange. You know, it was an overhead throw from the tombstone power driver position. So if you try to imagine it in your head, because you've never seen it before, imagine like a wheelbarrow suplex. It was kind of like that, except for they were in the tombstone position. He just kind of like, whoa, and threw Gresham over his head and just pinned him. I was like, okay. Look, I love Josh Woods. Josh Woods, if you were going to take the title off of Gresham, Josh Woods is the right guy to take it. I'm assuming it means that Gresham is going to go after the world title, which is probably the best move for Ring of Honor and for Jonathan Gresham, is that he goes up. You know, it was inevitable that he was going to lose the title. Josh Woods was the right guy. So while I didn't really like the match, I did think that it was the right finish and the right decision. So that was good too. Also, they had another blown referee spot in here where after a chaos theory, which is the rolling German suplex, both guys' shoulders were down again and the ref just kind of stopped counting. And he claimed that the shoulders were up and people were kind of like, ref, what are you doing? It was just too much heat on the referee in this match. I did like the earlier promos, though. I didn't talk about the early promos. And one of them was particularly interesting. As Jonathan Gresham talked about, instead of joining us, you decided to face me. And he talked about in 2006, he started hearing voices. And it was the Pure title calling him, saying that this was his destiny to be the Pure champion. Of course, it didn't mean anything because he lost. But I think it says a lot about the way that both Gresham and Lethal are taking this division. Not just the division, but their characters. That it is becoming like pure wrestling, like a pure wrestling cult. Where, you know, these guys are possessed with this spirit of pro wrestling. And that's a very interesting thing. And they're not being very open about it. They're not like, you know, they don't have like like Bibles or anything. But it's very interesting that, you know, each one seems to have a religious fervor for pro wrestling. And this is just kind of how Gresham's way of expressing it was to say that he's almost like possessed, like he can hear the voice of pro wrestling. So the sixth match on the card, La Facción Ingobernable, was Bestia del Ring, Kenny King, and Dragon Lee versus Shane Taylor Promotions. Now, Kenny King and Dragon Lee won the tag team championships from Violence Unlimited, which was Homicide and Chris Dickinson. They won that on ROH TV on September the 10th, which is a pretty good episode of ROH TV if you haven't watched it. That match was pretty good. It was very solid stuff. Dragon Lee got the pin with the incinerator knee strike. Also, the Briscoes wrestled Ray Horace and Bandito, which is another great match. So those two matches, if you can't catch the pay-per-view, just watch, the September 10th episode of ROH TV. It's pretty good. But that was the story going into this match, is that the Facción Ingobernable is, now that Dragon Lee is back, even though Rush is gone, Rush is injured, he's going to be gone for the rest of the year. But now that Dragon Lee is back, they're going back to where they were. So before Dragon Lee got hurt, they had the TV titles and they had the tag team titles. So since Dragon Lee has returned, he won the TV title back, and now they're the tag team champions again. And now they were looking to take Shane Taylor Promotions titles too. So earlier in the night, Kenny King had cut a promo where he was making fun of STP, Shane Taylor Promotions. And he was saying Shane takes pins, and he says Shane's too pussy. And so that was interesting. And so in typical La Facción Ingobernable fashion, during the entrance of Shane Taylor Promotions, Kenny King attacked Shane Taylor with a chair and just mollywopped him with the chair a bunch of times. The referees and all other kinds of officials had to take Shane Taylor away. Before he left, though, he told O'Shea Edwards to take his place. And the teammates, of course, accepted. So O'Shea Edwards was defending the title on behalf of Shane Taylor Promotions in this match. The match was, it was alright, I guess. It was just it was okay. The finish came where Shane Taylor showed back up and smashed Kenny King in the head with a chair. And then Khan just pins them. Each member of of Shane Taylor Promotions put a boot on Kenny King and had a sign that I think they took it from the crowd, was called Ingobernable Bitches, Ungovernable Bitches or something like that, which led to Dragon Lee spraying water all over everybody. And it wasn't like some silly Monday Night Raw shit. It was just kind of like he threw a water bottle or squeezed it or something like that in their faces or something like that. So it wasn't silly, but at the same time, you could tell he was showing disrespect, which was fine. The match itself was just okay. It was just all right. So the seventh match on the card was the Women's World Title match. Now, before I get into this, I did not know, or at least I didn't realize, that this is a completely different lineage from the previous Women of Honor title. I thought they were going to continue the lineage, but they kept saying the first ever ROH Women's World Champion. So I'm guessing Ring of Honor is doing what WWE did. They're going to have a pre-woke championship lineage and a post-woke championship lineage. And what I mean by woke is I mean that there is a lot of dubiousness with the Women of Honor, especially with the whole Kelly Klein thing. So now that, they went through this tournament and they're going to have a completely new championship that's going to be separate from the Kelly Klein problem. Just like, WWE got rid of the Divas title and, even their old women's championship, which was like Alundra Blaze and all that kind of stuff. They just kind of threw that to the side, and now you have the Raw and the SmackDown women's championships, and now you have the Ring of Honor women's world title. But earlier in the night, Maria had cut a promo talking about, how she appreciates all the women who came before her, and she was dressed like Poison Ivy from Batman. I mean, the shimmering green dress with the long red hair and the makeup and everything. She's a terrible Stephanie McMahon. I don't understand why all these people try to be Stephanie McMahon all of a sudden. It's just not good, man. It was just not good. All right, so this match was solid, though. This match was really solid. I enjoyed it. Roxy versus Miranda Alizé had a hell of a match. It was actually pretty hard hitting for a girls match. Miranda Alizé, I didn't think was the heel. I didn't know she was a heel until this match started, and she was being obviously heelish. I'm talking refusing the code of honor, hair pulling, eye gouging, biting. The old school heel stuff that I really like. So it was very good. I like the drama of the submission spot. Miranda Alizé does this the crossface like a submission. I think it's called Miranda's Rights, and it's like an arm bar with the crossface or whatever. And it was a real interesting submission that it seemed like Roxy might submit. Of course, she ended up escaping. Then we get to a tope suicida, where Miranda Alizé's knee just ends up buried in Roxy's chest. And it looked like it hurt like hell. It just looked like it hurt like hell. I was like, oh boy. All right. The finish was Roxy with the code red pins Miranda Alizé to win the ROH Women's World Title. And very solid match. Very solid. Roxy is a Booker T student. And Booker T's, reality of wrestling is producing some really great talent. Like Roxy's only 19, and she seems to have it pretty well. Like, she's of course not the best women's wrestler in the world or anything, but for somebody who is 19, she's pretty polished. She doesn't seem to make a lot of green mistakes. She seems to know what she's doing, and they worked this match like two people who knew what they were doing, and they both pretty much young women. So this was good. I enjoyed it, and Booker T is really. Every week, you see reality of wrestling is taking a step forward as far in terms of doing new things. They just had a guy sign to NXT. What was it? During the tryouts for SummerSlam. And now they have, people. I think one of his young women's, Promise Braxton. I think she's been on AEW every week for like 2 months now or something like that. So they've got. He got some students out there really doing it big, and now Roxy is killing it in the Ring of Honor. So reality of wrestling, man. I've been watching it too. Like, I keep an eye on it because it's worth watching. It's good stuff. It's good professional stuff. The main event is four corner survival for the ROH World Title. Bandito versus Flamita versus EC3 versus Brody King. I'm still confused why EC3 is calling himself the essential character. I just don't get it. I don't get EC3 at all. I don't see how he's still doing this gimmick that he's doing. And he had a weird motive. At least he had some kind of motive other than being the world champion. But there's no point in going into the promos for this match because it's basically all these guys saying, I'm going to be the world champion. But EC3 was especially odd because he kept talking about, he's going to use the title to destroy the past. And I'm like, why would you want to do that? Why? Why would you want to do that? He didn't win it, so we don't have to worry about it, but it was an interesting thing. So EC3 was eliminated first because Flamita bashed him in the back with a chair. EC3 didn't even sell it, but the ref didn't see it. Then Flamita basically just gave the chair to EC3. EC3 hits Flamita with the chair. The referee saw it. He got disqualified. So EC3 is gone. Flamita and Bandito then worked together as Mexa Blood to beat up on Brody King. They even did a Canadian Destroyer off of Bandito's shoulders, and that wasn't even enough. Normally I still was kind of like, what's the purpose of that? I know Brody King is bigger than they are, but let's be real here. No matter how big you are, if you fall on your head from that height, it should be over. Especially when you see what the finish was. It's disgusting. Of course, Flamita was being a snake because he had turned on Bandito many weeks ago. But in this event, he's got eliminated before he can really turn his back on Bandito. Because he gets beat with, I don't know what he calls it, but Santos Escobar calls it the Phantom Driver. And that's essentially what Brody King uses to defeat Flamita. Before we get off the subject of Flamita, we got to talk about his back acne, which is very strange. He looks like an acupuncture. I don't know what he's doing. I don't want to make any accusations, but he has some really rad back rash, and it's very weird. It's very, very weird. Hopefully it's genetic and it's not something he's doing to himself. Let's put it like that. Anyway, Bandito wins the match with the La Magistral Cradle. But I didn't like that finish because Brody King is so much bigger than Bandito. And at one point, Bandito hits Brody King with a shooting star press. And he kicks out at one. So we had this guy take a Canadian Destroyer off of Bandito's shoulders onto the mat. Didn't get pinned there. He gets hit with a shooting star press. He kicks out at 1, but he can't kick out of a magistral cradle. Whatever. Match was all right. I like Bandito as the world champion. I'm a big fan of him. Really enjoying his run. Was already a fan of him, and this just basically keeps things going. Afterwards, the Foundation comes out there to shake his hand. Earlier in the night, the Foundation had wished Bandito well and shook his hand and told him that they were proud of him and all that kind of stuff. And as they came out after the match, Vincent and the Righteous also came out, because that's the last stable that's really been involved with Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor has a lot of stables, and you know, you can have, like, they've done a good job with these stables because there's so many of them, but yet they're all very defined as having their own individual goals and visions and stuff like that. It's just not people thrown together. The Righteous is a cult, and Vincent is the leader of the cult. It's like the Wyatt family. You got the crazy girl, the big muscular redneck. And you got your hatchet man. You know, you got Shane Taylor Promotions, which is Shane Taylor and his I think he is going to recruit a woman, Trish Adora, to his group, I think. But it's not like Black Power or anything like that, but it's getting to that point eventually. But it's all about, you know, dudes trying to make a name for themselves, you know, trying to be impact players. And at the same time saying that, you know, people like us, you know, they don't want people like us to make it, you know, having that kind of gimmick. Then you have La Facción Ingobernable, which of course is based on the Ingobernable de Japón, or what they were doing in CMLL and AAA. And you have, you know, Kenny King and Dragon Lee, you know, the Mexicans with Kenny King. Then you have Violence Unlimited, who are, you know, like the middle point between La Facción Ingobernable and the Foundation, and so much as they believe that there's honor and violence. It's very philosophical. And it's also mixed because you have Homicide in that group, and you know, Dickinson and Deppin and those guys. And then you have the Foundation, which is, like I said, the almost religious zealots of pro wrestling who believe in pure wrestling, and, you know, the very core of what Ring of Honor is. And so all these factions exist within ROH, but they don't come across as being random, thrown together groups. They're all very well defined, even if the individual players are not all that well defined. Like La Facción Ingobernable, they're a little bit more defined, and so are the Foundation, because they've been the most out there. So if I was to say, you know, there probably need to be more, you know, more of a telling us what's going on with Shane Taylor Promotion. Like, who are these individual guys? Like, you know, tell me about Khan. Tell me about that guy. You know, O'Shea Edwards. Tell me about that guy. That kind of thing. That might be the only thing that's kind of missing. But these factions don't feel random. And Bandito is a guy who, his faction is broken up. You know, he was in Mexa Blood, or Mexa Squad, with Rey Horus and Flamita. His thing is now broken up. He's the world champion, and now he's got all of these goons. This cult is now after him because Vincent wants to be the world champion. And this is very interesting stuff. And, you know, it seems like the Foundation might, you know, try to recruit Bandito. So, you know, that ought to be fun. You know, get a good look seeing what's going on there. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe, donate, follow me on Twitter, MongoSlade8, at MongoSlade8. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.
Skin tone, so why attach yourself and piggyback the wealth you didn't earn or lack yourself? I'm telling you to own up to your own success and failures. It's a reason why these